Everyone turned away from the paralyzed alien warrior. Only this human soldier helped. Smoke and fire painted the sky over the once bustling Zirin city. Towers that stood for centuries now lay in ruins, and the cries of the injured echoed across the battlefield. Shattered vehicles, alien and human alike, littered the streets. Among them lay Thaler, a Zirin warrior once celebrated for his courage and skill. His massive limbs trembled as he tried to move, but his body refused. A stray beam from a collapsing structure had paralyzed him from the waist down. All around, his comrades fought desperately to survive, but none stopped to help him. The Zirins, proud and fierce, regarded weakness as dishonorable. One by one, soldiers passed him, their eyes avoiding his gaze. A few even spat in disgust and continued forward. Thaler's pride burned almost as sharply as the pain in his body, but he forced himself to remain still, knowing struggling too much could make him an easy target. "Please, someone," he whispered to the empty air. His voice cracked with frustration. Across the battlefield, Captain Elias Grant, a human soldier in the Coalition peacekeeping force, moved carefully. He had seen many alien worlds, but nothing had prepared him for the devastation here. Smoke choked the air, and ash fell like snow. His mission was to help stabilize the region, but a soldier left behind was a problem he could not ignore. He noticed Thaler almost immediately. The warrior's size alone made him hard to miss. But it was the stillness, the helplessness, that caught Elias's attention. His own team called out warnings. "Captain, leave him. We can't risk it," one said, voice tight with fear. "He's a Zirin. They don't want him alive." Elias shook his head. "No, he's a living being. If we leave him, he dies. That's not how we operate." Ignoring the warnings, he darted forward, carefully navigating the wreckage. He reached Thaler, crouching beside him. The alien's amber eyes widened in surprise. You're going to help me?" Thaler asked, suspicion in his voice. Elias offered a small, calm smile. "I am. My name is Elias Grant. I don't leave anyone behind, no matter what species." Thaler's gaze darted around, noting the distance of his former comrades, none of whom dared to look back. They left me. They said I am worthless." His voice cracked again, and for a moment, the warrior's pride faltered completely. Elias nodded. "I don't think that way. Stay with me. We'll get you out of here." It was not easy. Thaler's massive frame required careful handling, and the rubble made every step dangerous. Elias called for backup over his communicator, but he could see the hesitation in his team's faces. They stayed behind, unwilling to get close. But Elias pressed on. He secured a stretcher-like device from his pack, using alien-compatible supports to lift Thaler gently. As he moved, he kept talking, using simple words and gestures to calm the alien warrior. "You're safe. Breathe slowly, one step at a time." Thaler's distrust was clear. "Why? Why do you care? Humans do not care for others. They only fight and take." Elias laughed softly, a warm sound in the cold battlefield. "Not all humans. Some of us believe that helping is stronger than fighting, that life is more important than pride." For the first time, Thaler considered the possibility that this human was different. A spark of hope flickered in his amber eyes. It was fragile, but it was there. The journey was perilous. Alien drones flew overhead, still searching for survivors. Debris fell unpredictably. At one point, a beam collapsed just a few meters away, and Elias shielded Thaler with his body. Dust filled the air, and the human's uniform was streaked with ash. Yet he pressed on, each movement careful and deliberate, focused entirely on the paralyzed warrior. They reached a small clearing where a coalition medical team had set up a temporary field station. Elias carefully laid Thaler down on a reinforced table. A human medic approached, frowning at the size of the Zirin. "Captain, he's huge and heavily injured. Are you sure?" "He's alive, and I'm not leaving him," Elias interrupted. "We do this together." The medic nodded, respect replacing doubt. Together, they worked to stabilize Thaler, connecting monitors and checking vital signs. Machines beeped and whirred. Through translators, Elias explained each step to Thaler, who watched silently, still unsure of the strange human's motives. Hours passed. Thaler's breathing even, and his eyes, once clouded with pain and despair, began to clear. Elias stayed by his side, sometimes speaking softly, sometimes remaining silent, letting the alien rest. You saved me," Thaler finally said, voice hoarse but steady. "Why?" Elias looked down at him, eyes serious. "Because you matter. Because even a warrior who cannot walk deserves a chance to live. Because that's what makes us human." For the first time in days, Thaler felt a weight lift from his chest. He had expected ridicule, betrayal, perhaps even death. Instead, he found patience, care, and courage from a species he had been taught to distrust. Later, as night fell, the field station quieted, and the stars shone brightly over the ruined city. Thaler watched Elias moving among other wounded soldiers and aliens. There was no fear in his posture, only determination. It was unlike anything Thaler had seen in his own people. I am Thaler," he said quietly. "A warrior, and yet I am helpless." "You are not helpless," Elias replied, smiling. "You're learning to trust again. That is a kind of strength, too." Thaler's eyes softened. A strange feeling stirred inside him. Gratitude, yes, but also respect. Perhaps, he thought, there was more to life than pride and battles. Perhaps there was a way forward that did not involve fighting alone. The night was long, and the battlefield outside quieted as surviving forces retreated. Inside the medical station, the human and the alien sat in silence, the gap between species shrinking with every passing hour. Outside, the city still burned, but inside, a small spark of hope glimmered, carried not by weapons but by compassion. And for Thaler, that spark was everything. The first rays of dawn began to pierce through the smoke. He looked at Elias, standing tall, ready to face another day of chaos. For the first time, he felt something he had not felt in years: trust. The battlefield had turned its back on him. His own people had abandoned him. But in that quiet, smoky clearing, one human had stepped forward. And that was enough to begin a new story, one where courage was measured not just in battle, but in the choice to help when no one else would. Thaler's mind raced with possibilities. Could he survive? Could he fight again in some way without shame? Could he learn to walk alongside the strange human who defied everything his people believed? Elias knelt beside him, adjusting the exoskeletal supports that might one day allow him limited mobility. "You're safe here," he said. "And tomorrow we start helping you move, step by step." For the first time, Thaler did not feel fear or anger. He only felt the quiet pulse of life continuing, and for the first time in many cycles, he was not alone. And so, on a broken battlefield where everyone else had turned away, the human soldier's simple choice, to help, planted the first seed of hope in a warrior who had known only despair. The first light of dawn filtered through the shattered walls of the temporary medical station. Smoke still lingered above the ruined Zirin city, painting the sky in shades of gray and orange. Outside, the distant hum of alien drones patrolled the perimeter, reminding everyone that danger was never far. Inside, however, the air was quiet and calm, a small pocket of peace amid chaos. Thaler lay on a reinforced table, the exoskeletal supports adjusting to the contours of his paralyzed body. He watched Elias move among other wounded soldiers and alien civilians, checking monitors and offering quiet reassurances. It was strange to see a human act with such patience and care, treating every injured being, Zirin or human, with the same respect. For days, Thaler had lived in fear. Fear of betrayal, fear of weakness, fear of being judged. Yet this human, Elias, had shown none of those traits. That simple act of kindness had unsettled him more than any enemy weapon ever could. He did not yet trust Elias fully, but he wanted to. The idea of trusting someone again was frightening, yet enticing. "You will need to try moving soon," Elias said softly, kneeling beside him. "Even small movements. Your muscles need it." Thaler flinched. I cannot. I am broken. My people, they would call me dishonored if they saw this." Elias shook his head, smiling gently. "Being paralyzed does not make you dishonored. Being abandoned does not define you. Courage is not only in battle. It is in recovery, in choosing to survive and move forward." Thaler studied the human carefully. There was no judgment, No mockery, only patience. And yet, a deep fear lingered inside him. What if he tried and failed? What if his pride was further humiliated? But Elias did not give him a choice in words. He gave him a choice in action. He adjusted the exoskeletal supports so that Thaler could feel a light weight shift, the beginnings of movement. Just try to lift your leg slightly. Not fully, just a little. Thaler hesitated, muscles stiff from injury and disuse. Slowly, hesitantly, he raised one leg. It wobbled under its own weight, but it rose. His amber eyes widened, and for a brief moment, a flicker of pride returned. "You did it," Elias said, voice steady and encouraging. "One step at a time. Thaler, that's all that matters." Hours passed like this, each small motion a battle against his own doubts and fears. Elias remained patient, never rushing, never expressing frustration. Slowly, Thaler began to trust the human. He realized that the strange species valued life differently, valued cooperation, patience, and empathy. Perhaps, he thought, there was more strength in that than in sheer power. During a rare quiet moment, Thaler spoke of his past. "I was once a captain among the Zirans," he said, voice low. "I led raids, defended my people. I fought bravely. Yet now, I cannot move. My comrades left me. They say I am cursed useless." Elias nodded. "I cannot understand everything your people believe, but I know that life is never useless. Even when you cannot fight, you can still make a difference. You already have, just by surviving." Thaler considered this, feeling something he had not felt in cycles. Hope. For the first time, he imagined a future where he was not defined solely by battle or strength. As the day continued, the station received more survivors. Injured Zirans, humans, and even other alien species were brought in. Some were frightened, some angry, and a few, like Thaler, were abandoned by their own. Elias moved among them all with quiet competence, helping the injured and calming the fearful. His presence inspired respect and even awe, though none of the survivors fully understood why. "Humans are different," Thaler whispered to himself, observing Elias. "We abandon those who cannot serve. He does not." Later, a few Ziran soldiers who had abandoned him earlier came by the station. They paused at the entrance, seeing Thaler lying supported by strange human devices. Their faces twisted with disdain, then shock. "Thaler, what is this?" one said, voice trembling. "You alive?" And aided by a human, Thaler lifted his head slightly. "Yes, alive, and I am learning to move again. This human, Elias, has shown me that strength is more than muscles in battle. It is courage to act when others turn away." The Zirans murmured among themselves, unable to comprehend the concept. Some turned away, unwilling to associate with what they considered weakness. But one older warrior lingered, watching silently. His expression softened, and he nodded slightly. Perhaps, he thought, there was a lesson even in failure and help. That evening, Elias brought a small portable table and laid out data screens, showing Thaler how human technology could assist in movement and balance. Thaler leaned closer, curiosity and wonder replacing doubt. "You can teach me?" he asked. Elias smiled. "I can, but you must want it. Your mind must work with your body, and your courage must guide both. We will start small, step by step. Tomorrow, we try moving forward, not just one leg, but several steps." For the first time, Thaler felt a spark of determination. If his people would not help him, if the battlefield had abandoned him, he would rely on this human. Not because he owed him, but because Elias had chosen to believe in him. Night fell, and the sounds of distant drones faded into silence. Thaler could hear only the gentle hum of machinery and the steady breathing of humans and aliens resting nearby. He felt a strange sense of safety. For the first time, he allowed himself to relax, trusting that Elias's presence meant protection, guidance, and perhaps friendship. But danger was not far. Even as they rested, Elias remained vigilant. He checked the perimeter, noting movement in the shadows. Alien scouts still searching the ruins for survivors. His experience told him that the peace they enjoyed now was temporary. The next challenge could arrive at any moment. Thaler, despite his fear, realized that tomorrow would demand more than physical strength. It would require trust, courage, and a willingness to step forward despite uncertainty. The human beside him had shown that compassion could be as powerful as any weapon. Perhaps, he thought, that was a strength his people had forgotten. In the quiet hours before dawn, Thaler reflected on the small victories of the day. A leg lifted, a flicker of trust, and the knowledge that someone believed in him. Elias's patience and empathy had become more than help. They were a lesson, a model for a life he could still live. As the first rays of morning touched the ruined city, Thaler felt a resolve he had not known before. He would try. He would move. He would learn. And he would survive. Not for pride, not for his people, but because someone had chosen to believe in him. And that choice, simple as it seemed, would begin to change him in ways no battle ever could. The ruins of the Zirin city stretched like a scar across the planet's surface. Smoke still rose from collapsed buildings, and the distant hum of alien drones reminded everyone that danger was never far. But inside the temporary field station, a new energy pulsed. Hope. As the stars appeared above the ruined city, a quiet peace settled over the station. Thaler felt a sense of belonging he had not known for cycles. He was no longer just a paralyzed warrior abandoned by his people. He was a survivor, a guide, and perhaps, one day, a bridge between humans and Zirins. But the peace was fragile. Reports from perimeter indicated increased enemy activity, and more raiders were expected in the coming days. Thaler knew that the true test of this alliance, the bond between human and Zirin, was still ahead. He looked at Elias, standing vigil over perimeter, ready for whatever came next. And for the first time, he felt prepared, not because he had regained full strength, but because he had learned that courage, trust, and wisdom could carry him further than brute force ever could. Tomorrow, he thought, they would face the enemies together, step by step, side by side. And this time, he would not be alone. The night deepened, and the ruins of the city glowed softly under the stars. Thaler rested, muscles tired but spirit renewed. The alliance he had forged with Elias was not merely a partnership. It was a promise that even in a world scarred by war and prejudice, humanity and empathy could shine brighter than fear. And in the silence of that fragile night, the paralyzed alien warrior felt the stirrings of hope, a hope that would grow, step by step, toward a future he had never imagined possible. The first light of morning revealed the full extent of the devastation. The Zirin city lay in ruins, blackened walls and shattered towers stretching as far as the eye could see. Yet amid the chaos, there was movement, hope, determination, and a partnership that had been forged through adversity. Thaler stood supported by his exoskeletal device, each step deliberate, yet filled with newfound strength. Beside him, Captain Elias Grant moved with calm precision, scanning the horizon for threats. Today, they would face the ultimate test. A returning fleet of enemy raiders, larger and more organized than any that had come before. The survivors, humans and aliens alike, looked to them for guidance. Thaler's earlier successes had earned him the trust of some Zirins, though others still doubted. He could feel their eyes upon him, measuring every movement, every word. But he was no longer the paralyzed warrior who had been abandoned on the battlefield. He had regained not only movement, but purpose. Elias spoke softly, yet firmly. Thaler, the raiders are approaching. We have a plan. Follow my lead. Trust your instincts and remember what you've learned. Thaler nodded, amber eyes focused. I understand. Together. The word carried weight. It represented every step, every small victory, and every act of trust they had shared. And now it will be tested. The enemy fleet appeared on the horizon, metallic shapes glinting in the sunlight. Their engines roared, and they descended toward the city with intent. Panic rippled through survivors, but Elias and Thaler remained calm. Position civilians here, Elias instructed, pointing to a safe zone behind reinforced walls. We will use the city's ruins for cover. Thaler, you take the high ground. Your knowledge of the terrain will guide us. Thaler moved swiftly, supported by his exoskeleton, navigating collapsed streets and narrow alleys with precision. He felt a sense of clarity he had never known. The battlefield that once symbolized shame now became a place of strategy and control. From the high vantage point, he observed the raiders' formation. Their approach was aggressive, but not coordinated. They underestimated the survivors and the humans leading them. Thaler signaled to Elias, who deployed sensor drones and defensive barriers. Small, Well-placed devices created obstacles, slowing the enemy's advance. Impressive, Elias said quietly. You've grown into a strategist. Thaler allowed a small nod. I learned from someone who never gave up on me. The first clash came as enemy scouts attempted to breach the outer perimeter. Thaler coordinated defensive positions, guiding human and Xeran volunteers alike. They avoided direct combat, focusing on delaying tactics and strategic positioning. His voice, firm and authoritative, carried over the chaos, instilling confidence in those who had once doubted him. One young Xeran, injured and trembling, glanced at him. I thought you were weak, she admitted, but you lead us with courage. Thaler's amber eyes softened. Strength is not measured by the body alone. It is measured by action, by will, and by the choice to protect others. As the day wore on, the raiders pressed harder. Small skirmishes erupted, but Elias and Thaler's coordinated strategy allowed them to repel each wave. Thaler, despite his limited mobility, took critical actions, directing barriers, signaling movements, and providing guidance from vantage points. Every decision mattered. Every instruction saved lives. For the first time in cycles, Thaler felt the full weight of responsibility, and he embraced it. This was not about pride or honor alone. It was about making a difference, proving that even a paralyzed warrior could shape the outcome of battle. The turning point came when the largest raider squad attempted a frontal assault. Elias deployed human technology, portable energy shields, drones, and signal jammers, while Thaler directed Xeran volunteers to create choke points. The raiders, expecting easy targets, found themselves delayed and confused. The survivors moved with purpose, coordinated and confident under Thaler's guidance. Now! Elias shouted. Thaler signaled the volunteers, guiding them to flank the raiders and block retreat paths. The raiders, unable to adapt, began to retreat. Victory was not without cost, but the strategy had worked. The survivors were safe, and the raiders had been forced to withdraw. Thaler, exhausted yet resolute, looked down at the city he had once thought lost. The ruins now held possibility, a chance to rebuild, to lead, and to unite. As the adrenaline faded, the Xeran Council arrived. They had observed the battle from a distance, skeptical of human involvement and Thaler's leadership. Now, they approached cautiously. Thaler, the eldest council member, said, voice stern, you survived where others expected you to fail. You moved where others could not. And yet, you were aided by humans. Thaler met their gaze, standing tall with the exoskeleton supporting him. I survived not by pride alone, nor by strength alone. I survived because someone believed in me, because someone, this human, refused to leave me behind. He gestured to Elias. Together we protected lives. Together we turned despair into hope. Strength is not only in battle. It is in courage, compassion, and cooperation. A moment of silence passed. The council members exchanged glances, some reluctant, some thoughtful. The youngest member finally stepped forward. Perhaps we have underestimated the value of trust and alliance, he said. Perhaps we have been too rigid in our ways. The council nodded slowly. A gesture of recognition, subtle but profound, acknowledged both Thaler's courage and the human who had stood by him. Elias, standing beside Thaler, remained quiet, letting the moment speak for itself. He had never sought glory. He had only acted as any human with courage would, offering help where it was needed. But now, the significance of that choice was undeniable. Thaler turned to the survivors, humans and Xerans alike, who had watched the council's recognition. He spoke, voice strong and clear. This day proves that even in a world scarred by war and prejudice, cooperation can achieve what strength alone cannot. We are stronger together than apart. We have survived, and we will rebuild. A cheer rose from the survivors, human and Xeran alike. Thaler allowed himself a small smile, feeling a warmth he had not known since his injury. He was no longer defined by paralysis or abandonment. He was a leader, a warrior, and a bridge between two species. As night fell, the field station glowed softly under the stars. Thaler stood beside Elias, watching the city below. Smoke still rose in columns. But amid the ruins, small fires burned where survivors worked to rebuild homes and shelters. The human-alien bond, once fragile, had been forged through trust, courage, and compassion. You have changed your people's minds, Thaler, Elias said quietly, not just by surviving, but by showing what is possible when courage meets empathy. Thaler's amber eyes reflected the starlight. And you, human, have shown me that helping others, when no one else will, is the greatest courage of all. Together, we have proven that strength is more than battle. It is hope, trust, and action. Elias nodded. We did it together, step by step. For the first time since his injury, Thaler felt complete. He had faced abandonment, despair, and prejudice. He had regained trust, mobility, and courage. And he had discovered the true power of alliance, not just between humans and Zerans, but between all who chose to believe in one another. The night air was calm, and the ruined city seemed almost peaceful. Thaler and Elias stood together, a symbol of resilience, courage, and humanity. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The paralyzed warrior was no longer alone, and the bond forged through compassion and trust would guide them both toward a brighter tomorrow. And as the stars shone over the horizon, Thaler understood that true heroism was not measured by battles won, but by the courage to stand by someone when everyone else turned away. In a world of chaos and destruction, that courage had changed everything.